What if everything you've believed about death was wrong? What if, instead of being an end, the moment your body stops breathing is actually the beginning of the most sacred journey your soul will ever take? It doesn't come with trumpets or flashing lights. It doesn't feel like a doorway you walk through. In fact, to the world around you, it might look like nothing happened at all. But from your perspective, something extraordinary is unfolding. Your final breath leaves your body, your heart falls still, and in that very moment, you are more alive than you have ever been. The shift is subtle. At first, you might not even realize it's occurred. You blink, or at least, it feels like you do, and suddenly, the room seems different. Everything is sharper. There's a deep stillness in the air, not eerie, but sacred. You notice colors are more vivid, as if the veil has been lifted, and you're now seeing the world without distortion. You feel light, unburdened. There's no pain, no heaviness, only presence. And then you see it, your body. It's lying there, still, quiet. The shell you wore your entire life is now separate from you. It's strange, surreal, and yet somehow, it makes perfect sense. You're no longer confined to it. You're observing the scene from outside of it, not with your eyes, but with a new kind of sight, a vision that sees not just physical form, but energy, emotion, and essence. You feel no fear, maybe a moment of confusion, maybe a whisper of surprise, but beyond that, there's a sense of sacred recognition. On some deep level, you've done this before. You've left the physical before. You know what this is, even if your conscious mind doesn't quite remember. Time begins to dissolve. What once ticked by in minutes and seconds now feels like a vast, open stillness. You could spend hours just watching, and yet only moments pass. Or is it the other way around? You can hear the cries of your loved ones, feel the sorrow in the room, sense the heavy grief sitting in their chests. But strangely, you're not overwhelmed by it. You observe it with compassion, with love. You wish you could comfort them. You try to reach out, to say something, but no words come. You realize communication doesn't work the way it used to. You're outside the realm of language now. Your thoughts are vibrations. Your feelings are like ripples in a still pond. You project, but they don't hear. Still, you stay, you linger, not because you're stuck, but because something sacred is happening, a divine detachment. This is the moment where the soul remembers itself. The personality, the ego, the roles you played in the world, they begin to fade like fog lifting from a field. And in their place, something greater rises, a deeper identity, not your name, not your job, not your traumas or achievements, but the essence that watched it all unfold, the true you, the one who was always there behind the masks, quietly witnessing. In this space, everything becomes clear. You see how life was a play, a sacred theater, and you were the actor and the audience, all at once. The pains you carried, the things you thought would define you forever, they fall away like dust in the wind. Not because they weren't real, but because they were never the whole of you. You begin to feel pulled, not by force, but by resonance. There's a magnetic draw, subtle and steady. It doesn't yank or demand, it invites. Like a soft hand reaching through the veil, saying, "Come with me. There's more." But before you go, you linger a while longer. The connection to the physical world hasn't fully unraveled yet. There are still threads holding you gently in place. You notice the energy of the room, the way people's emotions create colors around them. Grief looks like gray-blue waves. Love shines like soft gold. You watch as people whisper prayers, cry silently, or stare in disbelief. Some reach out and touch your body, not knowing that you're standing beside them, hand outstretched, whispering back, "I'm okay, I'm right here." And then you start to notice something even more profound. You can feel their thoughts. Not in a spooky or invasive way, but as sensations. When someone remembers a shared moment with you, you experience it too, right alongside them. A laugh, a memory, a piece of music that once meant something to you both. It echoes in your awareness like a gentle breeze carrying the past into the now. You begin to understand that everything is still connected. Nothing has been lost. Nothing has truly ended. The body has fallen still, yes, but you are rising, expanding, awakening. You are not less than you were in life. You are more. You are consciousness without limitation. You are awareness without boundary. The sacred separation is not violent. It's not cruel. It's not the punishment or punishment threat you may have feared in life. It's not a test to see if you were good enough to keep existing. No, it is a return, a remembrance, a homecoming. The body was never the container of your soul. It was the vehicle, the suit, the shell your soul wore to experience texture, color, time, pain, joy, and limitation, so that you could learn from contrast and grow through choice. And now that the suit has been laid down, you begin to feel the fullness of your being returning to you. Your awareness stretches far. You sense realms you never imagined while alive. Dimensions within dimensions. A reality that breathes. It's like waking up from a deep dream, except now, the dream of physical life feels just as real as this moment does now. There's no rush, no alarms, only a sacred unfolding, a peeling back of the layers that once covered your truth. What you're experiencing in these early moments after death is not chaos or confusion, it's clarity. A kind of clarity you couldn't access while surrounded by noise, by the ticking of clocks, by the weight of a body constantly needing to survive. Now, survival has been replaced by being. You are pure being. The soul doesn't die, it doesn't dissolve, it simply moves, expands, transitions. And in this sacred separation, you come to understand that what you are cannot be ended. You are eternal. You are luminous. You are the silent observer that lived through every moment and now watches from beyond. And this is only the beginning. You begin to notice something strange. Time isn't moving the way it used to. There's no rhythm, no ticking, no forward or backward. It's just space, and stillness. And yet, everything is happening all at once. Your awareness hovers near the place where your body lies. It's not because you're stuck or held back. It's because there's something important unfolding here, something sacred, a final act of presence before the next chapter begins. You look around the room and it feels familiar, but changed, like you're seeing it for the first time. The air is thicker with emotion than you ever realized. You see color where there was once only air. Emotion paints the space in waves. Grief pulses in blue and violet. Love glows gold. Confusion flickers like smoke. The energy of the room wraps around the people who have come to say goodbye, and you feel every part of it with a level of sensitivity you never knew was possible. There they are, the ones you loved. Their faces are tight with sorrow, eyes glistening, shoulders trembling under the weight of goodbye. One clutches your hand, another whispers your name. You want to reach out, to speak, to say, "It's okay, I'm right here." And so, you try, you reach, you speak, you cry out in silence, but nothing happens. Your hand passes through theirs like a breeze. Your voice feels strong inside you, but makes no sound in their world. You call louder in your mind, willing your presence into the space between them. But no heads turn, no eyes meet yours, and that's when it hits you. They can't hear you, not in the way you once communicated, not through sound or touch or words. You are invisible in the physical now. You are here, but not here, present, but unreachable. It's not cruel, it's not punishment, it's just the nature of the transition. You have stepped into another frequency, and most of them are still tuned to the physical. Still, you try. You stand beside the one who's trembling with sobs, and you pour love toward them, not with your arms, but with your being. You focus your essence like light, sending warmth through the veil. For a brief moment, you see their shoulders relax slightly. They pause, as if they've felt something soft, something comforting. They look around, their eyes sweep the room. Then they whisper your name again, quieter this time, as if sensing your nearness. You realize that while they can't see you, there are ways they can feel you, not through logic or sight, but through the heart, through intuition, through the spaces between thoughts. This is how your presence is known now, not by the eyes, but by the soul. The room is full of unspoken feelings. Regret clings to the edges of the air. Words left unsaid, things never healed, apologies never made. They hang like shadows on the wall. And yet, you don't feel blame. You don't carry judgment. Instead, you feel a deep compassion. You see how hard it was for them. You understand now what they couldn't say then. You see into the heart behind every action, even the ones that hurt. What once felt personal now feels like a lesson, a shared experience, a bond. You walk through the room, or rather, your awareness flows. You pass by each person, feeling the unique frequency of their connection to you. Some feel raw, aching, deeply pierced by your passing. Others are still in shock, numb and silent. A few seem calm, peaceful even, and you know why. Because you already visited them in their dreams, or because they've felt your presence before. They believe in the unseen, and their belief opens a small door, even if only for a moment, allowing the light of your presence to be felt more clearly. There's something powerful about watching grief from this perspective. You realize that mourning is not just sadness, it's love looking for a place to go. It's the heart's way of saying, "You mattered to me." Every tear that falls carries your name in it. Every sigh is a prayer. Every memory is an offering. You begin to notice how your presence affects the space. When you focus your attention on someone, they feel it, even if they don't understand it. A sudden warmth, a chill, a rush of memory. A dream that night where you visit them and smile. These are the subtle ways you whisper now. It hurts to see them hurting. Not because you feel pain the way you used to, but because your heart has expanded. You want them to know peace. You want them to understand that death is not an end, that you are not lost, that this goodbye is only a thin veil. You move closer to one person in particular, someone who meant everything to you. Their face is twisted in sorrow, their hands clutched tightly, whispering things like, "I should have said more," or "I wasn't ready." You lean in. You send waves of comfort, letting them feel your forgiveness, your understanding, your eternal presence. Their shoulders shake, and then, suddenly, they stop crying. They place a hand over their heart, eyes still closed, and whisper, "Thank you." In that moment, they heard you, not with their ears, but with their soul. You begin to realize that you're not just witnessing grief, you're witnessing love in its most raw and sacred form. This is how people say, "You changed me." This is how they say, "I remember." And in their remembering, you live. You visit the place where your body lies, not because you are it, but because it once held you. You feel reverence for it, gratitude. You remember how it carried you through joys and struggles, how it aged, how it suffered, how it loved. You bow to it with silent thanks, knowing that it did its job well. And now, like a worn coat, it is ready to be laid to rest. You begin to feel the shift again. The pull is subtle, but undeniable. Something is calling you, not away from your loved ones, but toward the next step. You sense that this time of witnessing is almost complete. The space between worlds is delicate, and the window is closing. But before you go, you pause. You take one more moment to look at the people who shaped your human life, the ones who made you laugh, the ones who taught you pain, the ones who broke you open, so you could grow. You send a final wave of your presence, not as a goodbye, but as a blessing, a whisper into the soul of each one. "I was here, I am still here, and I will always love you." And with that, you begin to rise, not up, but inward, not away, but deeper. You are no longer tethered to the physical realm, not because you've left them behind, but because you've carried them with you. Every love, every moment, every heartbeat shared, you came to witness. Now, you are ready to journey. There comes a moment, not long after you've separated from the physical world, when everything you thought you were begins to dissolve, and everything you actually were begins to rise. It doesn't happen with warning or ceremony. It happens gently, like light revealing the details of a room you've been sitting in all along. The atmosphere around you shifts. The emotions of the physical world fade, and what replaces them isn't noise or confusion, it's clarity. You become aware of a presence, not external, but within. It feels ancient, wise, and overwhelmingly familiar. This isn't a being standing before you, it's a deeper version of yourself. A self that has always known the truth, the self that watched silently while you made every decision, felt every emotion, and walked every path. This presence doesn't speak in words, it resonates. It surrounds you like a field of understanding, and then, it begins. You don't see a screen. There's no theater. The life review is not a play you sit and watch, It is something you experience directly. It floods through you like a living memory, but it doesn't replay chronologically. You don't watch your life from birth to death in the order it happened. Instead, you feel it. You enter it, emotionally. You become the moments again, not as the one who lived them, but as everyone who was affected by them. You don't just remember what you did. You feel how your actions rippled. You become the person you spoke to harshly, feeling the sting of your words as they did. You become the friend you encouraged, feeling the warmth of hope you gave them. You become the parent you disappointed, the stranger you ignored, the child you hugged, the soul you loved. Every moment echoes with emotional memory, and in this realm, there's no barrier between your choices and their consequences. You feel it all, not to punish, but to understand. There is no judgment cast upon you by some outside entity, no voice booming from the heavens declaring you good or bad. That's not how truth works here. Instead, you see through the eyes of your higher self, the eternal part of you that has always known right from wrong, not because of rules, but because of resonance. This self doesn't carry ego. It doesn't need to defend, justify, or deny. It sees things clearly, purely, and with deep compassion. At first, the experience can be overwhelming, not because you are being condemned, but because you are being revealed. All the masks are gone. The roles you played in life, the strong one, the victim, the provider, the rebel, fall away like costumes at the end of a performance. What remains is the essence, the energy of your intentions. And this energy tells the real story. You begin to understand that every thought mattered, every choice, every hesitation, every moment you chose love over fear, or fear over love. Nothing was small, nothing was meaningless. Even the things you forgot left impressions on others, on the world, on your own soul. There are moments in this review that surprise you, times you thought you were right, but see now you were acting out of pride. Times you thought you were weak, but now realize it took unimaginable strength to endure. Times you believed you failed, but now see that your presence alone gave someone else the strength to continue. It's not a highlight reel, it's not a shame parade. It is a mosaic of impact, and every piece matters. You feel no punishment here, only truth. And truth, when seen clearly, is powerful enough to change you. In this sacred process, you meet your own motivations. You discover not just what you did, but why. The things you hid from yourself in life, the insecurities, the grudges, the unresolved grief, rise gently to the surface, not to haunt you, but to be held. Here, you can't lie to yourself. You can't pretend. You are completely transparent to your own soul, and this honesty is not cruel, it's liberating. You don't face this review with fear, you face it with reverence, because deep down, you understand that this is what it means to awaken. This is what it means to take responsibility for your own journey, not as punishment, but as power. You are not being measured, you are being mirrored. And in this mirror, you see beauty you didn't recognize during your lifetime. You see the moments when you gave more than you had, the times you chose to be kind, even when no one noticed, the strength it took to forgive someone who never apologized. You see your growth, the way your soul stretched each time you loved, each time you listened, each time you rose again after falling. There are tears here, but they aren't tears of shame. They are tears of awakening, of understanding, of release. You're not being asked to dwell on guilt. You're being asked to reclaim your choices, to own your story, to see it clearly so you can move forward without illusion. You begin to understand that you are both student and teacher. The life you lived wasn't just a string of events, it was a curriculum. And every lesson was designed to lead you closer to the remembrance of who you really are. Some lessons you learned well, others you resisted, but all of them served a purpose. All of them were sacred. As the life review continues, something shifts within you. You stop resisting, you stop analyzing, you stop trying to change what already happened. Instead, you open. You begin to feel compassion not just for others, but for yourself. You see the wounds you carried, the fears you inherited, the patterns that shaped your behavior. And you begin to understand, even your mistakes were part of the path. You didn't come to Earth to be perfect. You came to be real, to feel, to choose, to learn. And now, having seen the impact of your choices, your soul becomes ready for the next phase. Not from guilt, not from fear, but from clarity. And clarity is the soil where transformation begins. You are not here to be judged, you are here to understand. And in that understanding, you find freedom. The life review does not define you, it refines you. It strips away illusion, it shows you what truly matters, and what matters is always love. Not the kind of love that's romantic or conditional, but the love that recognizes the divine in all things, including yourself. You may not have lived a perfect life, no one does. But you lived a meaningful one, and now, you know why. Now, you remember what your soul came to learn. And with this knowing, something profound begins to unfold, a deeper level of peace, a sense of alignment, a readiness. The light of your higher self remains steady through it all, never once turning away, never once casting blame. It simply holds space, allowing you to see what was always waiting to be seen, that you are not your failures, you are not your shame, you are not your wounds. You are the soul that chose to live through them, learn from them, and rise beyond them. And now, you are ready to continue. In the moments that follow your departure from the body, there's a sacred pause, a kind of cosmic breath. You're not immediately whisked away to some distant spiritual realm. Instead, you remain nearby. The physical realm lingers around you like a soft fog, and for reasons deeper than memory, your soul stays close. Not because it's trapped, not because it's confused, but because this is a part of the journey, a necessary unfolding. There is something deeply important about these first 72 hours after the last breath. They are not just a transition, they are a bridge, a quiet space of completion where presence still matters. You stand near your body, not out of attachment, but out of reverence. What once held you now lies still, but your consciousness pulses with awareness. You feel a subtle tether still connecting you to the world you just stepped out of. It isn't painful, but it is poignant. This is the in-between, where you're not fully in one realm or the next. And here, in this delicate threshold, you begin to witness the world in a new way. There's movement around you, people coming, grieving, praying, whispering. Some stare at your face in disbelief. Others touch your hand as if trying to hold on to what's already slipping through. You watch them with a kind of sacred compassion. You want to tell them that you're okay, that you're still here, but in a different form. You try to speak, to project a feeling, a warmth, anything, but most cannot receive it. They're still looking for signs with physical eyes, still listening with physical ears. And yet, some sense you. It might be a sudden chill in the room, a momentary sense of being watched, or the feeling that you're still standing nearby. Someone may glance toward a corner, eyes wide, uncertain why. Another may find themselves overwhelmed with emotion, not from grief alone, but from presence, yours. These moments are subtle and fleeting, but real. In this space, you begin to realize that communication between realms does not work the way it did in life. It's all vibration now, emotion, intention, and the more open the heart, the clearer the signal. Why stay near the body? Why linger? Because this is part of the detachment. Like waking slowly from a dream, your soul needs time to fully recognize the shift. The body was your home, your vessel, your companion. You wore it for years, possibly decades, through joy, pain, laughter, and illness. Letting go is not instant, it's tender. Like saying goodbye to a dear friend you always knew you'd one day part from. There's another reason for staying, one that isn't always talked about, but you feel it deeply now. You stay to witness the love, to see who comes, who speaks, who remembers. Not out of ego or vanity, but out of curiosity, a soul-level desire to understand the impact your life had, and more than that, to offer comfort where comfort is needed most. You pour your presence into the room, hoping that some part of it will reach the ones who ache the deepest, and sometimes it does. A person walks into the room where your body rests, and suddenly they pause. They feel something. The air shifts. A warmth in their chest, a memory flooding in, a pressure behind the eyes. They whisper something aloud, not knowing why. Maybe they say your name, Maybe they say thank you, maybe they say sorry. You hear it all, you feel it not just as words, but as frequency, as truth. You respond, not with sound, but with pure energy. You wrap your essence around them in a quiet embrace they may never understand, but will never forget. At the funeral, your presence intensifies. Emotions run high, and where the veil is thin, your soul can often slip through. People gather to mourn, to remember, to release. Some cry. Some sit silently. Some try to stay strong. You walk among them, weightless, invisible, yet entirely real. You sit next to the one who's holding back tears, letting them feel your calm. You stand behind the one speaking your eulogy, supporting their voice with your own silent love. And in those moments, something remarkable happens. Some will dream of you that night. Others will feel your warmth in the days to come. A song will play, a light will flicker, a scent will pass by, and they'll know, they'll feel you. But not everyone senses you. That's okay. You're not here to be noticed. You're here to observe, to release, to prepare. These first 3 days are like the final notes of a song that shaped an entire life. The melody may be ending, but the vibration remains. There are times during this window where you may feel pulled in 2 directions. One part of you reaches toward the peace that lies beyond. Another still hovers near the people and places that defined your life. You watch them wrestle with your absence. You hear their questions. Where did you go? Can you hear me? Are you at peace? You wish you could answer directly. And while you cannot speak in the old ways, you can leave signs, gentle nudges, feelings that come out of nowhere but land exactly where they need to. A widow sits alone, lost in silence, and your presence enters the room like sunlight through a window. A child laughs unexpectedly, remembering a moment you once shared, and it lights up something in their heart. A friend, long distant, feels the sudden urge to write you a letter they'll never send. But you read it all, these small moments, these are your conversations now. And what you begin to realize is this: these 72 hours aren't just for you, they are for the ones you love. This is a sacred period of crossover, not only to release yourself from the physical, but to offer a final gift, presence without form. You're saying goodbye without words. You're giving closure through vibration. Some souls feel pulled to unfinished business, a truth never spoken, a wound never healed. If it's meant to be addressed, you'll be guided gently toward resolution. Not everything must be completed. Not every story gets a final chapter, but the love, the intention, the silent presence, that is often enough. And so, you stay, not trapped, not confused, but reverent. You walk through the house you once called home. You pause at the doorway where you used to sit in the mornings. You stand in the room where laughter once echoed. You pass by the mirror, not seeing your reflection, but feeling your essence stronger than ever, and slowly, the energy begins to shift. You start to feel less tethered. The pull from beyond grows stronger. The veil begins to thicken once more. Your time near the physical is almost complete. You have witnessed, you have honored, you have blessed. And now, it is time to rise. But before you do, you turn back once more, not to cling, not to hold on, but to whisper a final feeling into the space you once called life. I am not gone, I am only changed. And wherever you are, I will meet you there. Then, with peace in your heart and the past gently laid to rest, you begin to move forward, into the light, into the unknown, into the deeper layers of what it truly means to be soul. You begin to feel a shift, a subtle but undeniable movement in your essence. It's not a step forward, not a journey in space, but something deeper, like a tide pulling you inward and upward at the same time. The threads that once connected you to the physical world have softened, loosened, and begun to dissolve. The weight of grief, memory, and attachment lifts, and you find yourself entering a realm that feels unlike anything you've ever known, yet strangely familiar, as if you've been here before in dreams or whispers. This is not heaven, and it is not hell. It is something in between, a space shaped not by judgment or reward, but by vibration. It is the intermediate plane, the realm where energy reveals truth. There are no walls here, no sky, no ground in the way you understood them, and yet you are held, surrounded, supported. you feel structure, not of matter, but of consciousness. Shapes shift and change, but everything carries meaning. Light pulses not from the outside in, but from the inside out. You are not seeing with eyes, but with awareness. Here, everything is made of thought. And every thought has weight, has color, has consequence. As you settle into this space, you realize something profound. You are not experiencing a place, you are experiencing yourself. This plane mirrors you, not your appearance, but your energy. Your frequency, your inner composition. What surrounds you is not randomly assigned, nor imposed. It is created, or more accurately, revealed, by your own vibration. If you carry love, the air here feels golden. If you carry fear, shadows ripple through the light. If you've cultivated peace, the environment reflects that stillness back to you. There is no trick, no illusion. It is direct and immediate. You attract what you are, not what you want. You cannot manipulate this space. You cannot pretend. The intermediate plane is the most honest mirror your soul will ever face. Some who enter this realm find themselves in gardens of light, vast fields of peace where music hums not in the air, but in the soul itself. Others find fog, or grayness, not as punishment, but as a reflection of inner confusion or unresolved energy. There are no punishments here, only mirrors. And in that mirror, you come face to face with your true state. You begin to realize that this realm is fluid. It responds to you in real time. A single shift in emotion, and the scenery changes. A burst of love, and color blooms. A thought of regret, and the light softens, becomes dim. You're not just a visitor here, you are a creator. But creation isn't done with effort, it's done with frequency. And your frequency is shaped by the sum of your choices, your intentions, your truth. At first, this can be disorienting. You try to control what you see, to create beauty, to imagine something more pleasing. But this isn't imagination, this is resonance. Only what is authentic takes shape. You can't lie your way to light. You can only become it. And so, you begin to surrender. You stop trying to escape discomfort, and instead, listen to it. You ask, what are you showing me? A cloud in the distance holds an old fear you haven't yet released. A flickering light carries a memory you've tried to forget. But when you face them with the soul's eyes, something amazing happens. They transform, not by force, but by presence. You begin to understand that everything in this realm is a teacher. Even the shadows are made of light waiting to be seen. There is no linear time here, but there is process. Some souls move through this realm quickly, already resonating at a frequency that allows them to pass into higher dimensions. Others stay longer, not because they're stuck, but because they need to. This is a place of integration, a spiritual echo chamber where you hear the sound of your own being and decide what it means. You are not alone in this space. You feel others, not necessarily beside you, but near, souls moving through their own reflections. You don't need to speak to understand them. Their frequency tells their story. Some shine like suns, emanating clarity and calm. Others pulse with healing, working through layers of trauma. No one is better than another. All are simply at different stages of unfolding. Sometimes you feel guides, not as distinct figures, but as waves of consciousness that support and uplift. They don't intervene, they don't dictate, they hold space. Their presence is felt like a gentle current beneath your own, reminding you that you are safe, that you are seen, and that you are more than you know. In this realm, movement is internal. You don't walk, you align, you shift, and the realm shifts with you. You raise your vibration, and doors appear that were never there before. You choose fear, and distances grow where none existed. It's not punishment. It's feedback. It's design. This is the soul's way of learning without words, without lessons imposed from the outside. You live your truth, and the truth becomes your world. You begin to remember things, not from your last life, but from lifetimes. Memories not of events, but of states of being. Times when you were more aware, times when you forgot. Lessons you've carried through countless incarnations. You realize that you've been in this realm before, and you'll return again. It is a waypoint, a resting ground between earth and eternity, between human and divine. And yet, it is also a gift. In this space, you can see yourself without distortion. You can begin to shape the soul not by force, but by clarity. You begin to ask deeper questions. What have I become? What do I still carry? What am I ready to release? You might meet other souls here, a parent long past, a child lost too soon, a friend from another time. The reunion isn't with words or embraces, but with shared frequency. You recognize them not by face, but by feeling, and in that recognition, healing unfolds. Sometimes without speaking at all. You see, in this space, love is not a sentiment, it is a force, a frequency, a building block of everything. When you radiate love here, the entire realm brightens. When you resist, it dims. You are not being tested, you are being shown. You are learning what your energy does, how it shapes the space around you, and why your inner world matters more than you ever imagined. The longer you remain in this realm, the more you realize its sacred purpose. It is not a destination, it is a reflection. A spiritual mirror that gives you the rarest of opportunities to see yourself clearly, to make peace with what you find, and to decide what you wish to become. You begin to feel a new pull, a subtle invitation. Something within you shifts. Maybe a lesson has completed. Maybe a burden has been released. Maybe the frequency you now carry no longer matches this place. Whatever it is, you feel the realm beginning to dissolve around you, not in destruction, but in completion. You are being called forward, toward something deeper. Toward a space shaped not just by your own reflection, but by the higher architecture of the soul's journey. The intermediate plane has done its work. It has shown you what you needed to see. And now, you are ready to rise. It happens slowly, then all at once, the realization that your thoughts no longer stay inside you. In the physical world, you were used to the buffer, the delay between idea and action, between feeling and consequence. You could hide behind silence, posture behind politeness, and paint reality with carefully chosen words. But here, in this realm of pure energy and resonance, there is no such veil. Here, your thoughts ripple outward like waves on still water, and your emotions radiate in color, form, and sound. You are no longer surrounded by matter, you are surrounded by yourself. The environment does not exist independently of you. It bends, shifts, and blooms in response to your consciousness. What you think, you become. What you feel, you walk through. This isn't metaphor. It's the mechanics of the soul's world. There is no difference between the internal and external anymore. The moment you hold a thought, it appears around you. If the thought is peaceful, the air glows. If the thought is heavy, the light dims. Your emotions do not stay buried within your chest. They paint the sky around you. Guilt, for example, does not whisper here. It manifests. It hangs like fog in the space around you, thick, damp, and gray. It's not a punishment, but a presence, built entirely from your own energy. You move through it, as if walking through mist, but it is yours. You recognize it. You know where it comes from, the words left unspoken, the harm done without apology, the love withheld out of fear. Each wisp of fog is a memory, not attacking you, but asking for healing. And then there's love. When you center yourself in love, true, soul-rooted love, the entire environment responds. The air becomes clearer, the horizon stretches, colors become radiant. You don't just feel better, you become light. Love here is not abstract. It's not an idea. It's an energy so pure that it creates form, and when you dwell in it, everything brightens. Other souls are drawn to it, not out of need, but resonance. Light recognizes light. Communication, too, has changed. Words are unnecessary, even obsolete. There are no lips moving, no sounds echoing. Instead, connection happens directly, soul to soul. Telepathy is not a skill you learn here. It is simply how things are. Thoughts are shared in their full dimension, not just as ideas, but with tone, emotion, memory, and intention all at once. There's no way to disguise the meaning of what you're sending. Every communication is whole, complete, transparent. And because of that, something incredible happens. There's no deceit, no manipulation, no hiding. In this space, lying is impossible, not because you're being watched, but because everything is visible. You are transparent to others, and they are transparent to you. Not in a way that violates, but in a way that liberates. There is a kind of sacred relief in this honesty. You don't need to guard your heart. You don't need to perform. You simply are. And that is enough. It can be overwhelming at first. All the masks you once wore have fallen away. The roles you played no longer apply. You're not the parent, the spouse, the employee, or the wounded one. You're just soul, raw, real, unfiltered. And this level of authenticity can feel like standing naked in front of a mirror that reflects everything. But soon, it begins to feel like home. Because in this mirror, there is no judgment, only truth. You notice the residue of your choices surrounding you, not as debris or punishment, but as energy. The kindness you offered to others shines like soft gold in the atmosphere. The times you extended grace to someone who didn't deserve it create shimmering patterns in the space around you. Acts of compassion echo here, their energy looping gently like ripples across a pond. They don't vanish. They remain. They become part of your environment, part of the very structure of this reality. But so do the choices made in fear. You see the sharp edges in the distance, moments when you acted out of self-protection, times when you harmed because you were hurting. These don't attack you. They simply exist. And you are invited to walk through them, to face them, to soften them with awareness. You begin to understand that everything you ever chose lives here with you. Not to haunt, but to be healed. This realm teaches you that healing is not about fixing something broken. It's about becoming whole by owning every part of your experience. You begin to interact with the emotional artifacts you left behind. The conversation you avoided still hangs in the air, waiting to be completed. The forgiveness you withheld still pulses gently, asking to be offered. And when you choose to face these energies, when you step into them with openness, they shift, they dissolve. They return to light. Nothing is lost. Every experience you had in life, every choice, every moment of love or fear has left an imprint on your soul. And in this realm, you are surrounded by those imprints. You walk through your own story, not as a spectator, but as an alchemist. You have the ability to transform what remains. You might see familiar faces here, souls you knew, recognized not by appearance, but by energy. Your connection to them feels immediate and eternal. There is no need for explanation. They feel your truth, and you feel theirs. You connect not through shared memories, but shared frequency. Some offer comfort, some offer closure. Some are here to learn from you, just as you are here to learn from them. And through it all, you realize that you are safe, utterly safe. There is no punishment, there is no wrathful force waiting to judge, there is only resonance. You draw to yourself what you are. You walk through what you've created. And through that walking, you heal, you grow, you remember. You remember that consciousness is not something you have, it's something you are. And here, consciousness doesn't sit still, it expands, evolves, learns. Every step forward shifts the space around you. Every moment of clarity brightens your path. Every breath of forgiveness opens a new doorway. You're not being sent anywhere. You're being drawn forward by your own. There are no guides pushing you, no entities demanding progress. There is only your own soul, deeply aware of what comes next, gently moving you toward it. You begin to feel something stirring in the distance, not outside, but within. A readiness, a signal, a sense that this phase, too, is coming to its natural end. The environment around you, once fluid and alive with your unprocessed energy, begins to stabilize. The fog begins to lift, the light grows clearer. You've seen yourself. You've walked your choices. You've spoken in the language of the soul. And now, you're ready for something more. Not to escape, not to forget, but to rise. To enter a space not shaped by residue, but by remembrance. Where what you are is not built from reaction, but from alignment. You've been walking through the reflection of your consciousness. Now, you're ready to walk through its evolution. Not every soul moves forward as easily as light drifting on water. Some remain close to the edges of the physical world, tethered by threads that were never cut. These threads are not visible. They're made of emotion, memory, and attachment, but they are real. And for those who are still clinging to what was, this realm can become a holding ground, a space that mimics life but never truly offers release. Here, the soul is free, but it doesn't feel that way. It still believes it has something left to do. These are the ones who whisper through old houses, the ones sensed in the corners of rooms long after the body has returned to the earth. Not malicious, not lost, just lingering. Not because they must, but because they choose to, even if unconsciously. The truth is, free will doesn't dissolve after death. It remains, pulsing within the soul like a quiet heartbeat. You still get to choose. You can move forward, or you can stay behind. And many do stay, not out of desire, but out of fear, out of longing, out of a sense that something was left undone. The illusion of unfinished business is strong. A mother who couldn't say goodbye to her child. A man who died suddenly and thinks he still has promises to keep. A young soul who clings to trauma so tightly that it becomes a form of identity. These attachments create density in the soul's field, keeping it close to the lower vibrations of the earth plane. From here, they watch, they wait, and often, they try to interact with the living, hoping to complete what they believe must be finished before they can rest. But there's a sacred truth many of these souls don't yet understand. The business they think is unfinished can only truly be completed by letting go. Clinging does not complete cycles, it prolongs them. The pain that binds them doesn't need to be fixed, it needs to be forgiven. Yet in the absence of clarity, many hold on, not out of resistance to the light, but out of loyalty to their old life. They fear that moving forward means forgetting. They fear that healing means abandoning the ones they love. Trauma is another powerful anchor. When the soul carries unprocessed pain, betrayal, violence, shame, it can feel too heavy to rise. The energy becomes a loop, replaying the moment again and again in a realm where time does not exist. Without a body to ground or distract it, the trauma becomes a movie that plays in the atmosphere, pulling the soul into it like gravity. In these cases, the soul doesn't even realize it has passed. It remains in a space that looks like the world it left behind, but feels colder, quieter, more hollow. There are also those who remain not because of trauma, but because of identity. The ones who cannot let go of who they were, the titles, the roles, the image they built. To release that identity feels like death all over again, so they hold on. They return to the same places, surround themselves with the energy of their former lives, and try to feel real again. But they are not alive in the old sense, and they are not progressing either. They are caught in a liminal space that reflects their refusal to evolve. Yet even here, they are not alone. There are guides, luminous presences who exist just beyond the veil, who do not push or judge. Instead, they wait with patience and love. They send signals, not commands. They appear in dreams, in memories, in the silence between thoughts. Sometimes they take the form of a familiar face. Sometimes they are simply felt as peace, as warmth, as a whisper saying, "You can let go now." These guides are not saviors. They are reminders. Gentle anchors to the truth that the soul is never truly stuck. It is only paused, waiting for readiness. The beauty of this realm is that even when a soul delays its journey, the light does not diminish. The doorway remains open. Time, as the living understand it, has no authority here. A soul can linger for what seems like centuries, and yet the invitation to rise remains unchanged. Every moment holds the potential for awakening. One thought of surrender, one breath of realization, and the fog can begin to lift. The choice must come from within. No force, not even divine, will override your free will. That is the sacred law of the soul's journey. You must choose freedom. You must choose healing. You must choose to release the story in order to live beyond it. And when you do, everything changes. The energy around you softens. The pull of the old world fades. The voices of the guides grow clearer. The places you were stuck begin to dissolve, not because you fought them, but because you finally saw through them. What you thought was a prison was really a pattern. And patterns can be broken the moment you remember who you really are. You are not the pain. You are not the title. You are not the unfinished sentence. You are the eternal consciousness beneath it all, and you were never meant to stay behind. the journey is not over, it is only beginning. There comes a moment when the environment around you begins to shift, not from anything external, but from something stirring within. It's a silent pulse, an invisible current moving through your consciousness, a call that doesn't use words yet speaks directly to the deepest part of you. This isn't a voice you hear, but a knowing you feel. It moves through you like light moving through water. It's not loud, but it's undeniable. You're being drawn somewhere, not by force. Not by command, but by resonance. Something within you is waking up to a deeper layer of purpose, and it's this recognition that becomes the invitation. This part of the journey doesn't come immediately after death. It unfolds only after you've begun to shed the weight of your former life, after you've processed the imprint of your choices, released attachment to form, and allowed the soul to stabilize in its truer frequency. The fog has lifted, the emotional echoes have begun to quiet. You've faced yourself and survived, and now you're ready to remember something more. The space around you begins to feel more refined. The textures of thought and energy are lighter, more responsive, more aligned. But what draws your attention now isn't what surrounds you, it's what's ahead. You sense it not with sight, but with orientation, like a compass buried inside your being finally activating, pointing you towards something vast, ancient, and luminous. You begin to move, not with your legs, but with intention. There's no road, yet you travel, no map, yet you know where you're going. It feels sacred, it feels like destiny. As you move closer, the energy becomes unmistakable. This is no ordinary space. This is a realm of remembrance, a dimension that holds the records of every soul, every experience, every ripple across time and creation. It is not a library of books. It is not built from stone or walls or doorways, and yet, it feels like a temple, a place so charged with spiritual presence that you are both humbled and uplifted simply by entering its field. You don't walk in, you merge with it. Your consciousness expands as if stepping into a great memory, not of your past, but of everything. This is what some call the Hall of Records. Others refer to it as the Temple of Wisdom. Here, the Akashic memory, the living imprint of every action, intention, thought, and event, is stored beyond the limits of time. It is not recorded in ink or etched in stone, but in vibration, and here, you have access to it, not all at once, not in overwhelm, but in exactly the measure that your soul is ready to receive. The moment you enter, you feel it, a field of intelligence so vast that it erases every illusion of separation. Here, you know that nothing has ever been forgotten, and more importantly, nothing was ever meaningless. You are not here to be judged, you are here to understand, to learn, to remember. This is not a place for everyone. Only those who have reached a certain clarity are guided here. Not because it is exclusive, but because the soul must be prepared to see through the eyes of truth. To stand before the totality of existence and not collapse into fear or pride, but to accept, to integrate, to evolve. Within this space, you experience more than your own story. You begin to sense your soul's lineage, the lives you've lived, the lessons you've repeated, the patterns that have carried across centuries. You see that you've never been alone, that everything you experienced, even the suffering, was part of a greater weaving. You begin to understand why you chose certain parents, certain challenges, certain relationships. The tapestry unfolds, and you begin to see how one life affects another, how choices ripple through bloodlines, cultures, and even planetary consciousness. You also begin to see the impact you had on others, not just emotionally, as you did during the life review, but spiritually, the times you shared light when others sat in darkness. The moments when your presence, your kindness, your struggle helped shift the trajectory of someone else's journey. You understand now how connected it all is, that even a whisper of compassion can echo for lifetimes. And then, there is the greater learning. The truths not of your personal path, but of existence itself. You feel truths rise within you like ancient seeds finally blooming. You understand the laws that govern all realms, the balance between freedom and design, the power of intention, the sacredness of choice. You begin to see why suffering exists, not as cruelty, but as catalyst. Why some souls rise quickly and others linger. Why some lives are brief but powerful, while others stretch long across time, weaving healing through every generation they touch. In this space, everything is seen, not as punishment or reward, but as illumination. The light here doesn't burn, it reveals. It shows you what your soul has always known but had forgotten while clothed in matter. That you are not broken, that you have never failed. That you are part of something so immense, so intricately designed, that even your deepest wounds have meaning. You are not here to fix yourself, you are here to remember yourself. And as you stand in the radiance of that remembering, something within you begins to soften and open. You are not the same as you were in life. You are not the same as you were at death. You are becoming something new, or rather, something ancient, that you're finally ready to embody. The call has brought you here, and now, the calling deepens. You understand now that this journey is not a linear ascent, it is a spiral, a deepening into truth, a rising into clarity, and this place, this hall of wisdom, is not the end. It is the beginning of a deeper initiation. You have tasted remembrance, and now, you must decide how far you're willing to go with what you've seen. It begins with a feeling, a knowing that you've arrived somewhere even more refined than before. Not just higher in vibration, but deeper in meaning. The air feels sacred, charged with intention, yet perfectly still. You are not pulled or pushed, you are invited. And that invitation doesn't come from words, but from energy, from recognition. The Temple of Learning isn't a building in the traditional sense. It's a state of consciousness, a realm designed for the education of the soul. You don't enter through doors, you align through readiness. Only those who have walked through reflection, purification, and surrender can step into this place. And once you do, nothing looks or feels quite the same again. There is a silence here that speaks louder than any voice. It is not empty, it is full of knowing. Here, the answers you've carried questions for across lifetimes begin to rise, not from outside of you, but from within. As you step further in, you become aware of others. Beings who emanate wisdom without speaking, who shine without radiating light. They do not impose their presence, they meet you where you are. Some appear familiar, though not from this lifetime. Others feel like ancient mentors, soul elders who have guided you across incarnations. You know they have seen every version of you, and they meet all of them with absolute compassion. This is where you encounter your soul council, a circle of consciousness that has walked beside you for far longer than any memory can stretch. You are not intimidated, you are not judged, you are recognized. And with that recognition comes the beginning of deep education. But this isn't schooling, it isn't instruction, it's reflection on a soul level. What you learn here is not about how to do more, it's about how to be more, how to understand what you've been, what you've chosen, and what your essence is moving toward becoming. You begin to witness your lifetimes, not as a series of disconnected events, but as threads woven through a much larger tapestry. You see patterns repeating, not as punishment, but as invitations for mastery. You see karmic loops not as curses, but as choices unfulfilled. You recognize the cycles you entered to heal, the lessons you returned to complete. You remember that nothing you faced was accidental. Even the people who hurt you were often souls who had once agreed, in love, not cruelty, to play roles that would challenge you, that would activate your deepest growth. And then comes the realization that changes everything. You helped design it all. Every major soul in your life, every relationship that shaped you, every moment that bent your spirit toward awakening, these were agreements, sacred contracts made before you entered form. You chose the roles, you chose the tests, and so did they, not to trap each other, but to create the kind of friction that leads to light. You revisit a difficult relationship, and instead of seeing betrayal, you see an agreement for transformation. You look at a sudden loss, and instead of randomness, you see a sacrifice made for a higher purpose. You look at your own struggles, and see the exact ingredients needed to break open your heart and rebuild it with truth. You're not here to judge yourself, you're here to understand. In this temple, every layer of who you've been is met with love. There is no shame, only revelation. You're given space to feel everything, the pride, the pain, the longing, the moments of triumph and collapse, and in the center of it all, you feel the stillness of your true self. The one who watched it all unfold with the deepest compassion. That part of you that never left, the soul behind the stories. Your guides don't lecture, they simply reflect. They show you moments you forgot were sacred, a smile you gave that changed someone's life, a silence you held that let another breathe. The kindnesses that seemed small but echoed across lifetimes. And they show you, gently, the places where you contracted, the love you withheld, the truths you denied. Not to punish you, but to remind you that those were choices you now have the wisdom to change. This isn't about going backward, it's about bringing clarity to the path forward, because with understanding comes power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that liberates. You begin to see your soul not as a single story, but as a living flame that has danced through centuries, always returning to refine its light. You begin to feel, deeply and truly, that nothing was ever wasted. Not the pain, not the delays, not even the regrets. Everything served the unfolding of your essence. And when this knowing settles, when it fills every layer of your being like breath filling the lungs, something inside you shifts. You are no longer trying to escape your past. You are ready to carry it forward as wisdom. You are ready to continue your evolution, not out of fear of what's behind you, but because of the love that calls from ahead. The temple of learning begins to dissolve not because it ends, but because you have absorbed what it offered. You carry it with you now, not in memory, but in frequency. You are clearer, lighter, more whole, and above all, more ready. There comes a point when the echoes of your previous life begin to fade into the deeper rhythm of your soul's eternal unfolding. You've seen your choices, your patterns, your beauty and your shadows. You've sat in sacred spaces, remembered truths long buried beneath the noise of human living, and allowed clarity to illuminate every corner of who you've been. And as this clarity expands, a new question begins to rise, not asked by anyone outside of you, but stirred from the center of your being: what now? This question doesn't come with pressure, it comes with freedom. You are not pushed forward, and you are not held back. You are invited to feel into the next expression of your soul. You stand at a threshold, aware now that life, in all its forms, is just one chapter in a much longer book. And here, with the vastness of spiritual insight surrounding you, you begin to realize that the choice of what comes next is yours. Not based on judgment, not handed down from some cosmic authority. It arises from your own soul's readiness. Some souls feel it almost immediately, the magnetic pull toward return, not because they failed, not because they're being sent back, but because something within them still seeks to learn, to love more deeply, to refine something that was begun but not yet completed. It's not a sense of duty, it's desire. The kind that comes from knowing that every life offers a unique opportunity to grow, to expand, to experience the sacred through flesh and feeling. And though incarnation comes with pain, with uncertainty, with forgetting, the soul also remembers what it's like to touch, to taste, to speak, to hold another being close in physical form. Reincarnation is not a punishment. It is a path, and most souls choose it, not out of obligation, but out of purpose. They've seen what they created in their last life. They understand now how certain patterns were carried forward, how some fears were inherited, how some gifts were unused, and they feel called to return not to fix the past, but to continue the story. To weave a new thread through the tapestry they've been working on for lifetimes. This calling doesn't always make sense logically. It's not about choosing an easy life, or a glamorous one. Often, the soul chooses what it knows will stretch it in just the right way. A body that brings limitations, in order to deepen compassion. A family dynamic that triggers old wounds, so healing can finally occur. A place in the world that stirs the memory of a forgotten vow, or activates a gift long dormant. These choices are not random. They are precise, deliberate, and deeply personal. And yet, not every soul feels ready to return right away. Some choose to remain in the spiritual realms for a time, not out of fear, but reflection. They want to integrate what they've just experienced. They want to support other souls still in transition. They want to explore more deeply the layers of consciousness that exist beyond form, and so they stay. They dwell in the subtle realms, learning from other guides, reconnecting with soul groups, exploring dimensions where creation happens through intention alone. These souls may eventually return to physical form, or they may continue their evolution through higher vibrational expressions. There is no rush, there is only alignment. When the time comes to choose a return, the process is unlike anything imagined in the physical world. The soul is presented not with one life, but with possibilities, windows into paths that are available based on frequency, karma, and intention. You may see several potential lives, each carrying its own lessons, relationships, and outcomes. Some paths offer rapid growth through challenge. Others offer balance and support to recover from deep wounds. But all serve your evolution. And with that awareness, you begin to feel into each option. You feel the bodies, the families, the cultures, the potentials. You sense what kind of love will be possible, what kind of pain will emerge, and what dormant truths will be called forward. You begin to remember the people you've journeyed with before, souls you are destined to meet again. Some will challenge you, some will awaken you, some will break you open so that your light can pour through. You don't choose lightly. This isn't impulse, this is sacred design. And when your soul resonates fully with a path, when it knows, without words, that this is the next step in its spiral of becoming, a profound peace settles over you. There is still uncertainty. The veil of forgetting is real, but the soul knows it will not be alone. It knows the guides will walk beside it, unseen but never absent. It knows that even in the darkest moments of the coming life, a part of it will remember, and so the choice is made. A return, not to where you were, but to where your soul needs to be next. You may enter through the cries of birth, through the breath of a newborn whose lungs expand with the first taste of air. You may forget your name, your lessons, your story, but none of it is lost. It lives in you, beneath the surface, waiting for moments of awakening, waiting for dreams, signs, synchronicities, for those sacred nudges that whisper, "You've done this before. You're here for a reason. Keep going." You return not because you have to. You return because your soul knows there is more to feel, more to give, more to remember. And this time, perhaps, you'll remember just a little sooner. There is a stillness that follows deep transformation, a silence not born of absence, but of wholeness. After the soul has reviewed its journey, faced its truths, and chosen whether to return or remain, there often comes a sacred space where nothing is asked, and nothing is demanded. It is the soul's rest period, a time beyond time, a realm where healing becomes the atmosphere, and peace is not a destination, but a presence that surrounds and penetrates everything. In this space, you are no longer moving through mirrors of reflection, or making decisions about the future. You are simply being. There is no pressure to act, no need to answer questions, no urgency to evolve. The soul has done much, and now it is offered what many never knew they needed: deep rest. Not the kind of rest the body knows, but something much more profound. It is a spiritual convalescence, a space in which the soul is cradled gently by the universe itself. All striving is suspended. You are given permission to simply exist in your purest form. This rest period is not empty. It is filled with integration. What you've learned, what you've remembered, what you've healed, all of it begins to settle into your being like water soaking into the earth. There is a slow and beautiful assimilation of every experience, not just from the life just lived, but from other layers of your soul's existence. Traumas begin to lose their sharpness. Wounds begin to fade from the center of your consciousness. You don't forget what happened, but you stop identifying with the pain. The memories are no longer chains. They become teachers. And the emotion attached to them begins to dissolve like mist in the morning light. Here, you are held, not by hands, but by energy that feels mothering, eternal, complete. It is as if the soul is being gently repaired, bathed in frequencies of love and renewal. The grief you carried is acknowledged, then released. The fears that once shaped your choices are brought into the light, then softened until they lose their grip. Every part of you that was fragmented by earthly struggle begins to return home to itself. You become whole again, not because anything external changed, but because the internal chaos has found harmony. This healing does not require effort. In fact, it can only happen in the absence of it. The soul does not need to fix itself. It simply needs to be allowed to rest in its natural state, untouched by story, role, or form. In this space, there are no names, no identities. You are not mother or father, sinner or saint, victim or victor. You are simply you, pure consciousness, eternal essence, the presence that has been watching through every life you've lived. You may experience this rest as light, as warmth, or as a floating sensation. You may see soft colors that pulse with peace, or hear tones that dissolve tension. You may sense loving beings nearby, not speaking, but anchoring the stillness. Or you may sense nothing at all, just an expansive emptiness that feels more complete than anything you've ever known. This isn't isolation, it's union. You're not apart from anything. You are connected to everything in such a gentle way that there is no boundary between your awareness and the love that surrounds you. In this space, there is no past chasing you and no future calling. Only the now, the eternal now, where the soul gets to breathe in its truest rhythm. It's here that deep layers of fatigue, soul fatigue, begin to unwind. Lifetimes of carrying burdens, of enduring heartbreak, of striving and surviving finally fall away. You realize how long you've been holding on, and how deeply you've needed this, and you begin to allow yourself to receive. You are reminded that rest is sacred, that healing happens not just through action, but through surrender. There is a rhythm to the soul's journey, and this is the still point between the inhale and the exhale, the space between becoming and being. And in this stillness, you remember something the world rarely teaches. You are worthy, even when you're not achieving. You are loved, even when you're not giving. You are divine, even when you're simply resting. There's no timeline here, no clock ticking. You remain in this space for as long as your soul needs. Some stay briefly, others remain for what feels like eons. Not because they're stuck, but because they're receiving. Deep healing doesn't rush, it listens, it allows, and it respects the soul's wisdom to know when it's time to rise again. Eventually, a shift occurs. Not because you decide, but because your soul begins to hum with readiness. The light around you starts to change. Not brighter, but more active. The stillness remains, but within it, a quiet momentum begins to build. It's subtle, like the moment before waking from a long, nourishing sleep. You realize you're not being called to leave the peace, you're being called to carry it with you, into whatever comes next. The soul's rest period is not an end, it's a sanctuary between stories. A pause that allows for true restoration, and when you rise from it, you do so not as a broken thing mended, but as a sacred being remembered. You are whole, you are clear, you are ready. It often begins as a feeling before the form becomes clear, a familiar energy brushing against your awareness, a sensation that something once lost is returning. You turn, not with eyes, but with your essence, and there they are, a soul you knew, a soul you felt, a soul that, in the rhythm of your earthly life, played a role that shaped you forever. In this realm, you don't greet each other with words. You meet with presence, with remembrance, and it's immediate. There is no awkwardness, no hesitation. The recognition is soul deep, transcending time, story, and form. You encounter souls from the life you most recently lived, a parent, a friend, a child, a lover, and as you face each other now, everything is visible. Not just what was said or done, but what was meant, what was felt, what was feared. You understand them in a way you never could when bound by bodies and emotions. You see the pain they carried, the reasons behind their choices, the love they struggled to show, and in that seeing, a wave of compassion floods through you. There's no need for justification, no need to defend or explain. You both simply know. With some souls, the reunion is joyful, light, and laughter woven into the space between you. With others, it's quieter, more solemn. These are the meetings where pain still lingers, where karma still pulses between you. But even here, there is no judgment, only an opportunity to release, to forgive, to say what couldn't be said before. Sometimes you offer the apology, sometimes you receive it. Often, it's both. Not because you were wrong, but because your souls are ready to let go of the weight you once carried together. You may meet souls from lives long past, people you had forgotten in your current identity, but who feel like family the moment they appear. Others may come from parallel timelines, from existences your current self never knew, but your deeper essence remembers with clarity. And through each encounter, you gather fragments of yourself, memories, understandings, pieces of truth that return to you like lost parts of a mosaic, finally snapping into place. In these moments, peace is no longer an idea, it's an experience. Gratitude becomes a bridge, and forgiveness becomes a light that dissolves the remnants of every wound. Here, love becomes whole again, and so do you. There comes a moment when the soul, having journeyed through remembrance, healing, and reunion, is gently brought to the edge of a great choice. It's not presented with urgency, nor is it framed with pressure. It arises naturally, like a tide returning to shore, a subtle, yet powerful invitation to consider what comes next. You feel it not as a decision imposed from outside, but as a question arising from the depth of your own being. Will you return to the physical plane, bringing with you all you've learned? Will you remain in the spiritual realms to continue your inner unfolding, or will you rise into a higher state of consciousness altogether, stepping beyond the cycle of reincarnation? This choice is not based on merit or hierarchy. There are no rankings here. No path is considered better than another. What matters is resonance, what your soul feels ready for, what it longs for, what it still wishes to experience, express, or release. For some, the call to return is strong, not because of karma owed, but because of love yet to be lived, because there is still something left to give. These souls choose new bodies, new timelines, new cultures, and new roles that will challenge them in just the right way. They do not fear the forgetting that comes with incarnation. They understand it as part of the sacred veil that makes growth possible. They choose to return with intention, even if that intention will take time to remember. Others feel the need to remain in the realms of spirit for a while longer. They are not resisting life. They are honoring their rhythm. Some will serve as guides to others still journeying through density. Some will explore higher frequencies of creativity, healing, or cosmic understanding. This is not delay, it is depth, a sacred pause that allows the soul to expand before its next movement. And then, there are the ones who rise, souls who have completed the needed cycles of form. Not because they were perfect, but because they have embodied enough love, enough truth, enough clarity that the physical dimension is no longer necessary for their evolution. They do not ascend out of pride, but out of alignment. They become part of greater systems of light, architects of energy, holders of planetary frequencies, silent helpers moving across timelines unseen. Whatever the choice, it is met with honor. There is no disappointment, no reward, only a profound respect for the soul's sovereignty. You are free. And in that freedom, you remember that every path is sacred, and every step, whether forward, inward, or upward, is a return to the infinite. For 40 days, your soul has journeyed through realms both familiar and foreign, light and shadow, silence and revelation. You have walked through layers of self, seen echoes of the life you lived, and touched the vastness of the reality that lies just beyond the human veil. Each phase has been a step, a soft unfolding, a sacred spiral returning you to what you truly are, not a body, not a story, but a field of consciousness in motion. And now, you arrive at the threshold, the final day, the 40th day. There is something sacred about the number itself. 40 has always held power across cultures and traditions. 40 days in the wilderness, 40 days of rain before the flood receded, 40 days of mourning. 40 is a measure of transformation, completion, and crossing. And now, you sense it in your soul. This isn't just a marker of time, it is a gateway. Something is closing. Something is opening. And in this space between what was and what will be, you stand suspended in a moment so fragile, so powerful, it almost doesn't feel real. But it is real. More real than any dream, more real than memory, more real than anything you touched with human hands. This is the turning point. The veil that has thinned and shimmered since your departure now begins to shift. It does not close with finality, but it begins to firm, to solidify, to seal in a way that lets you know the sacred window is drawing to its close. You have had your time to witness, to reflect, to remember, and now the soul must begin to move again, forward, inward, or downward, into matter once more. But wherever you go from here, you will not go the same. The soul you are now is not the soul you were 40 days ago. Something has changed in your frequency, a permanent shift, an imprint of this passage. The choices you made, the reflections you embraced, the forgiveness you offered or resisted, all of it has left a mark on the fabric of your being, and this mark will not fade. It will ripple through what comes next, whether you return to the density of a new life or ascend into higher planes. The vibration you now carry is different. It is wiser, sharper, softer, more aware. The final hours of this 40th day carry a stillness unlike any other. Time, as you knew it, does not flow in linear strands here. Instead, it bends inward, folding in on itself like breath held in the chest. You can feel the weight of the lives you've lived and the weight of the lives yet to come, both pressing gently against your awareness, not demanding, but reminding. This is the moment where memory begins to shift into momentum. What was uncertain is now understood. The questions you asked in fear are now answered in love. You look back, not with longing, not with regret, but with clarity. The people, the places, the emotions, the choices, they all form a luminous mosaic that no longer defines you, but informs you. You do not cling, you do not resist, you acknowledge. You bow, you thank, and in doing so, you free yourself from what was. That freedom is the beginning of the next phase. If you have chosen to return, the preparations begin now, not in some distant room, but in the very essence of your soul. The blueprint begins to form. You begin drawing toward the people who will shape your next incarnation. Some will walk with you in joy, others in challenge. Some will appear for only a moment, others for decades. But all will reflect something within you that is ready to evolve. You choose the circumstances not from ego, but from purpose. You may return in a body that brings limitation, so you can discover limitless spirit. You may return in a culture foreign to your last, so you can remember the unity beneath the surface. Every detail becomes part of a larger symphony, a harmony only you can hear, but which will play through every breath of your next life. And if you have chosen not to return, if your soul now rises into higher realms, into spheres of creation beyond the density of form, then your energy begins to lift, to expand, to integrate into new dimensions of purpose. You do not vanish, you do not sleep, you become more radiant. Your presence is woven into the light that guides others. You become part of the unseen support that whispers to the incarnated when they feel alone. Your experience does not end, it evolves. The 40th day is the pivot, and on this day, everything you have seen, remembered, forgiven, and chosen echoes forward. It does not disappear. It becomes part of your signature, the unique energy you carry through eternity. The soul never stops becoming, never stops moving. And this day, this threshold, becomes a milestone in that endless journey. You may find that certain truths settle into your awareness more deeply now. That pain you once carried so tightly has unraveled. That judgment has turned into understanding. That self-blame has dissolved into responsibility, into compassion. You may feel, for the first time, entirely at peace with the path you walked. Not because it was perfect, but because you now understand why you chose it, and that understanding is liberation. For those who remain behind in the physical world, something subtle shifts as well. The energy of the one who passed begins to change tone, no longer hovering, no longer lingering, but blessing. Watching without grasping, loving without needing, those attuned may feel it, a soft goodbye, not an end, but a completion. The presence remains, but it steps back. A chapter has closed, a soul has turned. This is the power of the 40th day. It is not loud, it is not marked by ceremony, but in the quiet spaces of spirit, it is honored as a sacred crossing. A moment when the soul is no longer in between, but now fully aligned with its next phase. There are no wrong paths here, only authentic ones. What matters is not what you chose, but that you chose from your truth. And so the turning happens, quietly, powerfully, completely. You are not who you were. You never truly were. You are who you are becoming, endlessly becoming, and the 40th day is your reminder that even death cannot stop the unfolding of light.